Hey guys, this is Amber from NotableInk.com. I am so excited to be sharing this release today. I have 6 cards with a mashup of techniques that I'm going to share. So we're going to be going over Altenew artist markers, no line watercoloring. We're going to do some embossing techniques, put together some 3D dies for 2 of the different sets, and do some hand-drawn accents. So lots of techniques to share with all of these awesome products. Let's go ahead and jump in and get started. First up, we're using the Wavy Roses stamp set and the Halftone Stencil. So this is a really whimsical set. I love the charming font duo that you have going on here. Just really fun sentiments, lots of choices to choose from. And these stamps are awesome because there's wide open spaces, so there's opportunity for a lot of different techniques. Today we're going to be using the Altenew artist markers, and you can see with the insert all of the great inspiration that you have inside. You can do background panels, use just a single cluster as a focal point, which is what we're going to do today. And then of course you also have stamps for perfect pairing, and then they give you some color options as well. So lots of great inspiration inside the insert. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp one of the larger clusters, and I'm going to be stamping in a permanent black ink because I want to do some alcohol markers. So I've got this stamped down. I used a regular full sticky post-it note and put that on the center of the card. I've covered it with the halftone stencil, and then I have the mask stencils that are also available with this stamp set, and I've just adhered those to the stencil, and I'm going to ink blend right over that. So you want your mask stencils on top of the stencil. If they're underneath your main stencil, then you're not going to get clear edges when you go to ink blend. Moving on to the Altenew artist markers, I have the red Cosmos set here, and I have another piece of cardstock underneath my panel so that there's somewhere for the extra ink to absorb into rather than the silicone mat is not going to absorb it. So I start with my darkest markers and then move out to my lightest color. If I feel like I need more contrast, then I'll bring the darkest colors back in. And this is the Tropical Forest set. For the orange flower, I used the Warm Sunshine, but also added Ruby Red to that. And I just love how this card came out. The background ink blended in Sunray, I think, adds such a cheery backdrop to this whimsical stamp. And so we used Tropical Forest, Red Cosmos, and then the Warm and Cozy inks for the orange flower. Moving on to Playful Plumeria. I love Plumeria. I have one of these in my backyard, and I think that they're just so gorgeous with the number of different varieties that they have. So we'll do no line watercolor, and then we'll actually emboss all of the elements to create almost like enamel embellishments. So here we have the stamp set, and look at these sentiments. These sentiments are gorgeous. I love the script that's paired with the sans serif font. And so let's take a look at the inspiration guide. So of course you always have your layering guide on the back of your packaging, and that helps for easy access to that information. And then on the inside you have a number of different arrangements that you can use. It does come with a branch, so you can set it up that way or do an all over background pattern. And the layering of the stamp set is just so beautiful. But as I said, today we're going to do some no line watercoloring. I have my favorite watercolor cardstock, the Saunders Waterford High White Rough cardstock, and I linked a less expensive option down below if you've looked at that paper before. So I'm just stamping the first layer in buttercream, and then I have chamomile and coral bliss, and what I'm going to do is use an ink dauber to add a little bit of these colors to, I'm trying to do a highlight edge and a darker edge. I want the darker edge to be where the folded area of the Plumeria is. So one of the things that's distinctive to Plumeria is that kind of like bright white edge that folds over on the one side of each petal, and you can see that here. Now what I've done is I've stamped the base layer and the second layer so that I would have a good idea of where that fold is when I'm going to do my no line watercolor. So this is basically like an underpainting. Then I just wet it, and then I dropped in a little bit of color. So to add a little more detail and sharpen up that nice fold that is distinctive to this flower, I'm just coming in with my polychromos pencils. I'm hoping there's going to be a time at some point where I feel comfortable just leaving it as the watercolor and not adding color pencils, but I can't seem to stop myself. I just want that extra detail and contrast. So I've added a number of different colors. You can see them over there. And then I'm adding a little bit of dark brown and medium brown. So I've used the block print stamp set to do a background in, I think I did that in olive. And here's where I decided I wanted the flowers to also be shiny and glossy. So I stamped the base layer over this entire thing that I've spent all this time watercoloring and doing color pencils on. And I'm going to add 3 layers of clear embossing powder to these images. So this is actually going to end up being a really thick, glossy embellishment. And I loved the look of it. I was really happy that it turned out well and that it didn't ruin the flowers, because it took quite a bit of time to do the watercolor and the color pencil for these flowers. I stamped the detail layer of the leaves in moss, and then I'm just coming over top of it with the base layer in dewdrops to just change the shade to a little bluer. I wanted to set it apart from that olive background that I have so that they didn't just blend in. So you can see I've got an arrangement of 3 leaves, 3 flowers. I actually had more than that, but when I die cut it, I cut one in half because it shifted. So it was really sad, but I have so many favorites from the set of cards, but I think this might be my favorite. So we're using dot art and that chevron stamp all the way up in the left corner to create our background. So I really didn't even think too much where I put this first stamp down, but it just worked out beautifully. So it's about an inch away from the left border, and I had it positioned all the way up at the top of my MISTI, and I've shifted it down 1 inch. So that's going to give me just, I don't know, the right amount of space in between each one of these. And I'm going to do a pattern here and just bring it all the way down this left-hand side, moving it down 1 inch each time. So I've got Coral Bliss, what was that, chamomile, and I have olive ink here. I'll do another black one at the top and then bring that olive back down to the bottom again. And again, like I said, just shifting every inch, and it just worked out beautifully. I was really surprised because I didn't put a whole lot of thought into what this was going to look like. I just felt like it needed multiple colors and a whole stripe of them. So I love it when that happens. Now, when I got down to the bottom here, I needed to figure out, because this is different, right? You're coming from the bottom. So I'm an inch away. You know, when I measured to the bottom tip of that, it's about half an inch away. And so I'm going to shift this up 1.5 inches. And before I close it, I'm just going to double check to make sure that's the right spacing, and it was. So we're moving on to Polish Papercuts 3D die. This set is just so cool. It's really unique and different, and it was fun to play around with the color palette that I already had going with the other cards. Here is the layering guide so that you have an idea of what these finished elements look like. I didn't use all of the elements in the card, but I've cut all of these pieces from shimmery cardstock, so either Curious Metallic or Star Dream Metallic. I'll have them listed in the blog post, and those are from cutcardstock.com. This one was a white gold, and I didn't have the right color pink, so I just used the Coral Berry artist marker and created a pink that I was really happy with. So you can see how that stacks up there. And then, so my background panel, I totally ended up coloring one of those pieces on top of it. I don't know what I was thinking. So now I just have to arrange my elements over there, because I definitely was not going to start over. So I'm just playing around with the elements. That circle piece of vellum was too small, so I ended up going with a heart that I just had already pre-die cut. And my sentiment is from Simply the Best. We'll use that card later in the video. And I played around with putting that small flower at the top in the arrangement with the 3 at the bottom multiple times. It wasn't working out, but I thought it looked great up there to create that triangle of elements that work so well in design. And I just love all of the white space, and in particular the colors of this card. Moving on to Pleasant Pansy 3D dies, we're going to be using some more of that shimmery cardstock. And to me, pansies always looked like little lions or animals to me. So for the background, we're going to be doing a little bit of a jungle theme there. And this sentiment is also from Simply the Best, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it went great. Hello, you amazing creature. To me, that was really kind of playful and fun. So here is the 3D die set, so for the Pleasant Pansy, and you have your layering guide right on the front. This is so incredibly easy to layer because for each one of the layers, it lines up exactly with one of the edges. So super easy to figure out where things go. So I have it cut again from a selection of those shimmery cardstocks, and we're just layering those together. So in between the first and second and third layer, I added some dimensional adhesive, and the rest of the layers I either adhered with glue or with tape runner. So for the leaves, I did 2 leaves again with some dimensional foam and then 1 leaf just flat. Here you can see the pansy on the left I did with Altenew artist markers, the shades of purple markers. And then here you can see the shine of the shimmery cardstock. So both look really good, but I do really like the shimmer. So to create our background, I just took some Post-it tape and I tore it in half so that I could create a border. I wanted to leave quite a bit of white space, and so I started with about an inch of white space on either side. Once I had all 4 sides masked, I went ahead and ink blended bamboo over the feathered leaf stencil. And after taking it off, I felt like the block in the middle was too small. So then I brought the same tape back and I shifted it up about half an inch, and I'm going to do a darker border around it. So I just kind of tore up some spare pieces and put that in the middle so that my bamboo area would stay bamboo. I first started with olive, didn't think that was dark enough, and then brought in some moss around the edges. I used a bit of tape to keep my arrangement together so I could put adhesive on the back, and here you can see the finished card. To each one of the cards, I added some Nouveau drops. You could also use some enamel embellishments as well. And I just love how this card turned out. Again, it's kind of a fun, whimsical type of style. I love the jungle theme and those little pansy lions. I made 2 cards with this beautiful huge bloom from the Simply the Best stamp set, and it's the blue one that I have filmed. I will talk about how I made the orange one when we're done with this filming. So the Simply the Best is a huge bloom. It kind of reminds me of, I want to say it was inked flora, the size of that bloom, and I think those two would go together well. So you can see all the inspiration inside with multiple blooms, a single bloom, and you also have the layering guide here as well. This die set, I used just 1 layer of the die set in this first card, and the second card I created 2 different layers. So look at these sentiments. These sentiments are amazing. I love the huge, bold, blocky text with just the smaller sans serif font. So I have this second layer of the stamp set here, and I stamped it in pink and blue. So this is Tide Blue, and I end up using the blue one. So I'm going to stamp up the third layer to add some detail to this flower, and I'm doing that in Obsidian black ink. So this is just going to be a 2-tone card. This color palette totally doesn't match any of the other cards in the set, which is weird for me. I don't usually do that. Normally I color coordinate everything, but that's how we're doing. So after I get this die cut out with the largest die, I'm going to take a Sakura micron pen. I'm using a micro perm pen here. You totally don't need to. That's just what I had handy. Just a regular micron pen or fine liner will work. And I'm just adding some lines to the white areas that I have here. So if you stamp the base layer, then those petals won't be white. They'll be whatever color you use to stamp it in. I left mine white for those bright highlights, and then again I'm just adding some detail. So I'm going to use a regular household pencil and add some graphite to these just to add some shading and pop those blue petals off of the surface. And I'll use a tortillon over there just to blend out that graphite and get some softer edges. So I think this adds some really quick detail to the card. I used another block print for the background, this time stamped in Obsidian black ink, and then did a white embossed sentiment on a sentiment strip there. Those sentiments are from the Simply the Best stamp set. So for the second card, I stamped 2 of the large blooms in the same way, and what I did was the rock and roll technique. So I did Sunray for the base layer, and then I came in with Coral Berry, and not Coral Bliss, Coral Berry, and I did the rock and roll technique around the edges to just get a gradation of color so that it wasn't just one single flat color. That adds more dimension. I'll link my Build a Flower Crocus video up in the corner for information on the rock and roll technique. And then I covered these blooms in a complete layer of clear embossing powder, and I embossed that 3 times just like I did with the Plumeria flowers, and you can see the incredible shine that are on those blooms. For the second layer, I fussy cut out the middle part of that second layer in lieu of using the die because I didn't want the white outline around it. And that is our 6 cards and a bunch of different techniques. I know this was a lot of information, but I have polled you guys, and I know that you prefer a lot of the cards in one video versus a whole bunch of separate ones. We're all really busy and don't have a lot of time to spend on a ton of card videos. So I hope that you enjoyed this video today. Give me some feedback down below. Let me know if you would have preferred to have some of them separated. But I hope that you guys did enjoy this. I thought that these were just such a blast to play with, and I had so much fun. Thanks again for Altenew for inviting me to the hop. As always, the products are listed below, and be sure to visit us on the hop and leave us a comment so that you have a chance for winning an Altenew gift card. If you enjoyed this video, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell button, and hit that like button so that you get notified of more inspiration as it comes along. I so appreciate you stopping by, and until next time, breathe, ink, inspire.